Most horror fans believe they've already uncovered every dark corner of the genre. They think the scariest films are the ones sitting on streaming platforms, waiting to be played. But there's another side to horror history, one that was never meant to reach the public. Scattered across forgotten vaults, shuttered studios, and mislabeled boxes are films that were fully created, finished, and then buried. Some were swallowed by legal turmoil. Others were abandoned when their studios collapsed. A few were screened once before being locked away. Like dangerous secrets no one wanted to confront again, and many simply vanished, leaving only rumors, secondhand descriptions, and faded production stills as proof they ever existed. These aren't unfinished projects, they're complete works, shot, edited, and then quietly erased from circulation. Some have resurfaced decades later in damaged form, stitched together from surviving prints. Others are still missing entirely, drifting somewhere between myth and memory. Tonight, we're opening that vault. We're pulling back the dust-covered curtain that time and sometimes intention draped over these films. What you're about to see are stories that almost disappeared forever. Films that walk the fine line between reality, panic, and the edge of cinematic darkness. So settle in. What's lost is about to be remembered. And what was never meant to be found is waiting. 1. London After Midnight, 1927. A masterpiece lost not to time, but to fire. Directed by Todd Browning and starring Lon Chaney in one of his most haunting transformations, London After Midnight was once a cornerstone of silent-era horror. Chaney's skeletal grin, sharpened teeth, and hypnotic stare became iconic long after the film itself was gone. In 1965, disaster struck. The last known print was destroyed in the MGM vault fire, erasing the film from existence in a single night. Since then, archivists, collectors, and historians have searched worldwide for another copy crossing continents, combing foreign film libraries, following every rumor. Nothing has surfaced. All that remain are still photographs, the script, and a painstaking reconstruction created decades later, more like a seance than a screening. London After Midnight stands as the ultimate phantom of horror cinema, a film everyone knows, but no one alive has seen. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones told on screen, but the ones lost forever. 2. Grizzly 2. The Predator, 1983. Released 2020. A blockbuster sequel that never made it past the woods. Grizzly 2 was intended to be the roaring follow-up to the 1976 surprise hit. Everything looked promising. A massive outdoor festival set, ambitious creature effects, and a cast of young unknowns who would one day become Hollywood royalty. George Clooney, Laura Dern, Charlie Sheen. But the production was cursed from the outset. The animatronic bear collapsed constantly, funding evaporated mid-shoot, and the producers vanished, leaving the crew stranded with unfinished footage and unanswered questions. The film was shot, partially edited, and then locked away, too broken to release, too expensive to salvage. For decades, horror fans debated whether the movie even existed. Only scattered stills and convention rumors kept its memory alive. Then, in 2020, a reconstructed version surfaced, stitched from surviving reels, incomplete scenes, and whatever materials could be found. What emerged wasn't a polished film, but a cinematic fossil, a glimpse of what might have been, preserved unevenly by time and chaos. Some films fail, others simply never get the chance to rise from the forest floor. 3. Begotten 1989, a film that looks like it crawled out of the earth. Begotten isn't told it's endured. Opening with a deity destroying itself in a desolate landscape, the film unfolds like a myth excavated from a corrupted reel of film. There is no spoken word, no comforting structure, only unnerving imagery that seems to rot as you watch it. Elias Merige created it from painstaking, experimental techniques that degraded the film stock, giving it a diseased, ancient quality. It premiered to small audiences, many of whom walked out in confusion or horror. Distributors avoided it. Festivals hesitated. The film was too strange to market, too visceral to categorize, too nightmarish to forget. It slipped out of circulation almost instantly, surviving only through midnight screenings and bootlegs passed between hardened cinephiles. It's less a movie than an affliction, something you witness once and feel long after the screen goes dark. 4. The Poughkeepsie Tapes, 2007. When fiction looks indistinguishable from reality, people panic. The Poughkeepsie Tapes was shot as a faux documentary pieced together from the alleged home videos of a serial killer. The result was brutal, toneless, and disturbingly plausible, far more than most audiences were prepared for. MGM planned to release it widely in 2007. The marketing was ready, trailers hit theaters, and then without warning the studio pulled the plug. No release, no explanation, no physical copies. The film simply evaporated. Whispers spread that the movie had crossed a line, that it resembled real cases too closely, or that its style made it unsafe to distribute. For years, only low-quality rips and exhibition prints kept its legend alive. When the official release finally arrived a decade later, many felt the version had been muted, its roughest edges sanded away. Whether that's true remains a mystery. Some films terrify you, others terrify the people who own them. 5. The Other Side of the Wind, 1970 seconds, 2018, a film about a dying director, completed by one who never lived to finish it. The Other Side of the Wind began as Orson Welles' ambitious attempt to dismantle Hollywood mythology. Shot like a fragmented documentary, it follows a filmmaker in his final days, surrounded by admirers, enemies, and doubts that echo Welles' own troubled legacy. The movie was essentially completed, yet fate intervened, legal battles erupted, funding froze inside international banks, ownership shifted between countries, governments, and creditors. For 4 decades, the footage sat locked away, unreachable, untouched, and deteriorating in vaults like a relic from another lifetime. When it was finally resurrected in 2018, what audiences saw was a mosaic pieced together from thousands of fragments, brilliant, chaotic, and haunted by the absence of the artist who conceived it. Watching it feels like communing with a ghost, Welles speaking from beyond, but through a voice distorted by time and circumstance. Some films are lost because no one found them. This one was lost because the world changed before it could breathe. 6. Night of the Demon, 1957. What you imagine is always worse unless the studio forces you to see it. Jacques Tourneur designed Night of the Demon as a masterclass in psychological dread. His intention was simple: let the terror stay unseen, suggest the curse, hint at the creature, let the audience fill in the void with their own fear. That, he believed, was where true horror lived. But the studio disagreed. Behind the director's back, they inserted a literal demon into the film early on, and again during the climax. The original, subtle cut was discarded or buried, leaving only this altered version to circulate. Even so, the film remains a classic. But the lost cut, the one Tourneur fought for, has achieved near-mythic status. A version shaped by shadows rather than rubber and smoke. What audiences saw was horror explained. What Tourneur intended was horror imagined. 7. Symptoms, 1974. Sometimes madness whispers. Sometimes it moves in. Symptoms tells the story of a woman seeking refuge in a remote countryside house, hoping silence will mend what's broken inside her. Instead, silence becomes a mirror, reflecting every crack in her psyche. Footsteps where no one walks. Voices drifting through empty rooms, a presence that feels both familiar and alien. Celebrated at Cannes and chosen as the UK's official entry, the film inexplicably disappeared afterward. Rights issues, poor distribution, and indifference sealed its fate. For decades, scholars referenced it, but no one could actually watch it. It became a phantom title in the history of British horror. Only when a single print resurfaced did the film re-enter the world, restored from the shadows. Watching it feels less like viewing a movie and more like intruding on a private breakdown. Some films vanish because no one cared. Others vanish because they cut too close. 8. The Keep, 1983. Some ruins hide history. This one hides something alive. The Keep, Michael Mann's atmospheric, dreamlike descent into supernatural horror, takes place in an ancient fortress occupied by Nazi soldiers during World War II. What they believe to be a simple stronghold quickly reveals itself as a prison built ages ago to contain a force older and more malevolent than any war. But the version the world knows is a fractured echo. The original cut, reportedly over 3 hours long, was torn apart after Mann's editor died unexpectedly during post-production. Paramount stepped in, slashing the film to under 100 minutes, leaving entire storylines severed, imagery lost, and motivations stripped of their meaning. What remains is haunting but incomplete, a mosaic with its most crucial pieces missing. Fans have long speculated about the lost footage, extended mythology, spectral sequences, and a far more coherent emotional arc. The monster wasn't the only thing imprisoned. The film itself was locked away with it. 9. Don't Go to Sleep, 1982. Not every ghost returns to be mourned. In Don't Go to Sleep, a family moves to a new home after losing their eldest daughter. But for the surviving daughter, grief becomes something tangible, something with a voice, a face, and intentions she can't explain. What begins as soft whispers becomes a presence that stalks the edges of every room. The movie aired only once. No reruns, no official release, no preservation. Viewers who saw it as children carried fragments of scenes in their memory like scars, unsure whether the film was real or imagined. Decades later, grainy bootlegs surfaced, confirming that this wasn't shared hallucination, it was a lost nightmare, broadcast once and then sealed away. Grief is a door, and sometimes something steps through that shouldn't. 10. Dark August, 1976. Guilt can haunt, but in the Vermont woods, it can hunt. In Dark August, a man accidentally kills a young girl in a rural town. The grief-stricken grandfather, rumored to dabble in occult practices, begins stalking him. What starts as paranoia slowly mutates into something supernatural, something watching from between the trees. The film was completed and released in a small regional circuit, but when the distributing company folded, Dark August disappeared with it. For years, it survived only through degraded VHS recordings traded by collectors. When a surviving 16mm print finally surfaced, the restoration revealed a film as sun-soaked as it was suffocating. Its horror is quiet, steady, like breath on the back of your neck even when you're alone. The woods don't forgive. They remember. 11. The Intruder Within, 1981. Isolation is terrifying. But isolation with something ancient is worse. Set on a drifting oil rig surrounded by endless ocean, The Intruder Within unfolds like a nightmare you can't wake from. After a drilling operation unearths a prehistoric organism buried deep beneath the seabed, the crew begins to unravel psychologically, physically, and then violently. The film aired once on American television and then evaporated. No VHS, no rebroadcast, no official archive. The company that produced it collapsed shortly after, leaving the film stranded in a legal vacuum. All that survives today are blurry recordings captured by viewers who happened to be watching that single night. For them, the film became a half-remembered terror, the kind that lingers not because of what you saw, but because you can't ever see it again. Some films fade with time. Others sink beneath the waves, dragging their nightmares with them. 12. Night Warning, 1982. What if the person protecting you is the one you should fear most? Night Warning, also known under its later, more sensational title Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker, centers on Billy, a teenage boy raised by his aunt, a woman whose affection crosses boundaries no one should cross. Her love is obsessive, consuming, and laced with secrets she has spent years burying. The film was completed without issue, yet its release was sabotaged by discomfort behind closed doors. Executives balked at its raw depiction of repressed sexuality, queer identity, and predatory guardianship elements far ahead of their time. Their solution? Rename it, cut it, bury it in limited distribution, and hope it disappeared quietly. For a long time, it did. The film became a ghost on late-night TV schedules, seen by few and remembered by fewer. Only in the last decade did horror fans revive its reputation, pointing to its boldness and bruising psychological intensity. Some horrors hide in the basement, others are sitting across the breakfast table. 13. The Severed Arm, 1973. Survival demanded a sacrifice. Vengeance demanded the rest. The severed arm begins in darkness literally. A group of men trapped underground are forced into a horrific decision. Amputate one man's arm so the rest can live. The pact saves them, but it doesn't save their conscience. The final released version of the film is missing its original opening reel, which reportedly delved deeper into their guilt, fear, and psychological decay. Without it, the film becomes a straightforward slasher. With it, the story would have been something else entirely, something heavier, more tragic, more claustrophobic. Crew members claim that the loss of the reel changed the film's entire meaning, erasing the moral weight that made the revenge so much more haunting. What's missing can be more important than what remains, and sometimes the first cut is the one that bleeds the deepest. 14. A Reflection of Fear, 1973. In this house, innocence fractures like glass. A reflection of fear follows Marguerite, a young girl living under the suffocating protection of her mother, surrounded by dolls, whispers, and reflections she treats as companions. When her estranged father returns, old wounds and buried secrets stir awake. Though the film was finished in the early 70 seconds, The version audiences saw was heavily trimmed. A more disturbing cut, one rumored to be far more psychological, more explicit in its emotional violence, was shelved by the studio, never to be officially released. Even the edited version feels suffocating, dreamlike cinematography, fragile performances, and an atmosphere that seems ready to crack at any moment. Yet the unreleased cut lingers over the film like a shadow, hinting at truths the studio didn't dare show. Some films frighten you with what they reveal. This one frightens you with what it refuses to show. 15. The Astrologer, 1975. Destiny was supposed to crown him. Instead, it swallowed his film whole. The Astrologer, Craig Denny's strange, glitter-soaked self-mythology, was a project built on ego, improvisation, and belief in cosmic grandeur. The film follows a man who uses astrology to manipulate fate itself, rising to fame before the stars collapse on him. But the story behind the film's disappearance is stranger than anything on screen. It was completed, screened briefly, and then pulled from existence for one simple, baffling reason. Denny used major label music throughout the film without securing the rights. The legal fallout shut the film down instantly. For decades, people questioned whether the film even existed. Only whispers, half-remembered screenings, and scattered anecdotes survived until a lone 35mm print resurfaced in an archive, untouched for years. When finally shown, viewers found a film that felt like a personal fever dream, half prophecy, half vanity project, shimmering with the surreal atmosphere only the 1,970 seconds could produce. It's a film created to glorify its maker and forgotten, as if the universe rejected it. Sometimes, the stars predict greatness. Sometimes, they bury the evidence. Bonus pick: The Curse of the Blue Lights, 1988. Before we close the vault, there's one more forgotten relic worth dragging back into the light. The Curse of the Blue Lights was a small-town production with ambitions far bigger than its shoestring budget. Set against the lonely backdrop of rural Colorado, the film follows a group of teenagers who stumble upon a corpse pulsing with an eerie blue glow, a discovery that awakens an ancient evil hidden beneath the soil. What begins as curiosity becomes a desperate struggle against creatures and rituals far older than the town itself. The movie was completed, edited, and quietly released to a handful of local video stores. Without a distributor willing to take a chance on a regional horror oddity, it quickly slipped into obscurity. Copies decayed on rental shelves, and over time, the film drifted into the realm of rumor, half remembered by those who saw it, disbelieved by those who hadn't. Years later, a long-lost print resurfaced, giving preservationists a chance to breathe life back into the film. The restoration revealed not perfection, but passion creature effects crafted by hand, atmospheric lighting, and a kind of earnest horror that feels ripped straight from campfire legends. Watching it now is like uncovering something buried on purpose, rough, strange, and stubbornly alive. Some films don't fade away. They wait underground, glowing faintly, until found again. Some films disappear because time forgets them. Others vanish because someone wanted them gone. If you've followed this journey through misplaced reels, lost archives, and the shadows of abandoned productions, you've already stepped into a part of horror history most people never see. And there's plenty more hidden beyond this list. More films shelved, burned, misplaced, or quietly erased. If unraveling these forgotten corners intrigues you, stay close. There are countless stories still locked in the dark, and together, we'll keep opening the vault one lost reel at a time.